Hey everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Top 5 Friday. We are looking at the top 5 underrated players in Blood Bowl. Every week we get together, we do a top 5 something to do with Blood Bowl, probably, and this week we're looking at those players that feature in teams that never get enough talk. They are rated worse than they are. They're the least favourite positional, but they are actually really useful. People don't talk about them. They're actually better value than you actually pay, that kind of thing. So a few weeks ago, put a post out everywhere, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on the YouTube, and you guys very helpfully let me know your submissions. And what I've done is I've added it all up together, put it with mine as well, and basically put together the list of the top 5 underrated players in Blood Bowl. Number 5, it's the troll. It's all trolls, okay? So, I am an unapologetic troll unlover, I guess? I don't know. I guess I owe trolls an apology. I think I did put an apology to trolls in one of the team videos for Sevens. And you know what? In this edition, they've got better. As far as big guys go, they're not as good as ogres. They're not. And they're not as good at throwing as treemen are. They're not as good at blitzing as minotaurs. This is not going well, is it, as a troll apology goes. But as far as underrated players, or underappreciated players go, the trolls in all their guises are brilliant. There are 115,000. Some have mutations, some have Loner 3+, some have Loner 4+, all of them can vomit on stuff now, and all of them can throw things. But straight up, on the line, think about it. A Black Orc is 90k. For 25k, you get strength, you get mighty blow, you get regeneration. I know there's a couple of things that, you know, you lose. You lose a bit of agility, and you get probably the worst skill in the game, which is really stupid. But man, trolls on the line are fantastic. You don't have to activate them. And that's it. They are just a strength 5 defense piece. And they're underrated in 7s as well. They're not ideal. Moving them around is a difficulty. You've got to herd them. But 9 squares of space is taken up by them. 4 left, 4 right. That is a chunk of the pitch. And if you get a 2+ troll blitz in, it's going to do brilliantly. They will go toe-to-toe with enemy big guys without a problem. They've got armor 10+. They've got regeneration. They're just going to stay around. They're going to get beaten. They're going to get beaten. They're going to get beatings. And they're going to get back up again. And they are going to beat. So trolls, for you guys and for me, the number 5 underrated big guy, they are so much better than people say. Number 4, we've got the Fungus Flinger. So this was really cool to see a lot of you people talk about this. I think, I'm sorry if I've got the wrong person. I think it was Hampus that came back and was like, actually, there is a great argument for the Fungus Flinger to be an underrated and undervalued player. You think, it's a snotling, it doesn't really do a lot. It's a secret weapon, doesn't really add a lot to the game. Yeah, you're throwing bombs, but throwing got worse. Bombs got kind of better, like even if you catch a bomb it blows up. And as everything got worse at passing, being able to pass that bomb along if you catch it is going to be harder, so it increases the chances of you dropping it and blowing up, and bombs have got mighty blow now. But the key thing for the Fungus Flinger, and why it's an underrated player, is it's 30k. A bribe is 50k. You can afford 2 Fungus Flingers, basically, for the price of a bribe, which is insane. So you can take a bribe, or you can just buy another Fungus Flinger and have cash left over. Plus, and this is why I absolutely love these little players, they get passing access on primary skills. So, if you're in a tournament setting, particularly, but even in a non-tournament setting, it's going to take a while to get them to 6 SPP, but actually, eventually they'll get there. They're not involved in the brawl. Most of them are going to be off the pitch because they've been sent off because they're secret weapons, not because they're getting splatted. So actually, as far as snotlings go, these positionals here have got the biggest chance to accrue SPP from MVPs, and maybe the odd completion here and there because they've got a reasonable passing stat, 4+. So 30k, you can chuck on Hail Mary Pass. It's a 50k player. If you do the same thing for a Goblin roster, it's a lot more. It's a double skill for the Goblin Bombardier, and the Goblin Bombardier itself is more money. I feel like it's 45k? 45k plus a double skill, that's 85,000 for a Goblin. It's 80,000 for a Fungus Flinger and a bribe. and then you chuck on 20k, so 100k for a Fungus Flinger and a Bribe with Hail Mary Pass, 85k for a Goblin Bomber with Hail Mary Pass, no bribe. You can afford 2 for 1, and they are basically free. They're 30k. You're always running Riotous Rookies with Snotlings, and you've generally speaking got hordes, swarms if you will, of swarming players. So you've got a Bombardier on your pitch, but it's not taking up one of your 11 slots because there's Journeyman in there to fill the gap. So the Fungus Flinger for 30k is underrated because it's basically free roll. Ooh, number 3, the Dark Elf Assassin. Okay, let me adjust my seat. Get ready for this one. So the Assassin. No Dark Elf player has ever played the Assassin if they've wanted to play well. That's a gross oversimplification, and there was definitely corner cases for that. We did a bunch of trials running 2 Dark Elf Assassins instead of 2 Blitzers. Don't recommend it. But the Dark Elf Assassin is underrated because for years it just wasn't that good. It wasn't cost effective. It wasn't superb. But I think it's underrated because we've been playing it wrong. The Dark Elf Assassin stabs things. That's great. That's not really its primary purpose. It's 15k more than a lineman. You get 1 extra movement, you lose 1 AV. Okay, that's fine. That's a reasonable trade-off. That's it. Just think about it from that point of view. If you were building a roster, if you were building a team, if you were starting out with any team at all, and you were like, right, actually I want somebody a bit faster, would I pay 15k more for 1 extra movement and a trade-off of armour? Yeah, I would, because at Ag 2 plus, movement 7 is fantastic. So the Dark Elf team's got 4 Blitzers, their movement 7. It's got 2 Witch Elves, their movement 7. You could also take 2 Assassins that are movement 7 Ag 2 plus pieces. They've got General and Agility, so these guys are just... they're catchers. They are potentially catchers in a Dark Elf team. And they're underrated because movement 7 Ag 2 plus is real good. Just ask Wood Elves everywhere. Okay, Wood Elf Lineman, we rate them very highly. This is a Wood Elf Lineman with some extra skills, because shadowing at movement 7, okay, we're thinking, well, you don't really want to put shadowing on people because it means you're going to be standing next to them and you're going to get murdered instead. But actually, if you use the Dark Elf Assassin as a safety, it's an incredibly effective piece. Okay, just go plonk them next to a player, or if your opponent marks you, and this is the thing I absolutely love, this is why I'm thinking actually Dark Elf Assassin can become the catcher element, or the catcher equivalent of Dark Elves. I know their passing isn't great, but you know what I mean, like they loiter. An opponent tags them with a player. Doesn't blitz them, just tags them. You've got a great choice in your turn then. Okay, do I 2+ dodge away, or do I stab them for free, for the lols? So you're playing against a team, and they're using a safety on you, but not blitzing you because you've got 4 blitzers and other Witch Elves and things to do that. Dark Elf Assassin is just going to get a free roll to stab, so you don't need to upgrade them. But when you do, if they take dodge, they're going to stay alive. They're going to be way more maneuverable. Then you've got a movement 7 dodge Ag 2 plus piece that's got a couple of skills that are quite fun. Shadowing can be useful. Stab can be really useful, and it gets you that opportunity as well to go for the stab blitz on the War Dancer. They're underrated because they are a toolkit piece. They're not as good as Blitzers, they're not as good as Witch Elves, but a movement 7 Ag 2 plus piece is always useful, and it can stab stuff for the sake of it. Number 2 is the Orc Lineman. So the Orc Lineman got an absolute ton of votes everywhere, okay? People just do not appreciate the Orc Lineman, and I'll tell you why. The Orc team in 11s tends to be 4 Blitzers, 4 Black Orcs, and some stuff, okay? Occasionally there's a thrower. I'm going to say the Orc thrower because that is a really useful piece, but there's an absolute ton of Orc players that do not bother with the thrower. And when it comes to Blood Bowl 7s, you take those positionals and you're left with the Orc Lineman. And the Orc Lineman is a fantastic player. Yeah, it's slow at movement 5, but its armour is massive. Okay, armor 10 plus on this guy means that it's going to get knocked about. It's strength 3, which is brilliant. It's movement 5, it's Ag 3 plus, and it's the Ag 3 plus here that carries the Orc Lineman into almost the top spot of the underrated player. Because if you are left in a situation where your Orc Lineman needs to be your ball handler, that's awesome. There are teams and teams out there that would happily take an Orc Lineman. Think about Renegades. The Renegade Orc is you have to buy it. Its armor makes it a superb lineman. You drop him on the line and it gets knocked down, and because it's armor 10 plus, just gets back up again. But this lineman is in a position to do absolutely everything. You can blitz well with it, not brilliantly. You can pick up the ball with it, better than average. And yeah, movement 5 isn't great, but on your team, everybody else is movement 5 or movement 6 anyway, so you're not even that slow. The Orc Lineman fills in as the ball carrier a lot of the time. If your blitzers are off rampaging, you don't want to do it with your Black Orcs, an Orc Lineman will guard the ball, and then quite regularly, and I mean quite regularly, it's going to be able to pick up the ball and do everything you want. Now, this spot kind of feels like most linemen could be fitting in here, but the Orc Lineman is underrated because it never gets the mention, but does the job every single time. Every single game, that Orc Lineman is going to do a superb job. Edge 3+, 50k, movement 5, armor 75 million. They never die. They grind up and they become their own positionals. These guys are stealthy good. Okay, movement 5 makes you feel like they're rubbish. They're not as good as dwarves. They're not as fast as humans. They're going to live longer than human linemen. And that's the key, is that they will live longer on the line. And they're backed up by a decent array of players, but Orc Linemen soon find themselves with block. You can even take sure hands on them and become your ball carrier if you really are opposed to the thrower. So for me, and for a lot of you, the Orc Lineman comes in here because it does not get talked about enough. It does not feature in the top lineman, and it just fills in for everybody everywhere on that Orc team. Scoring threat, reserve blitzer, it just does a superb job. 50k is an absolute bargain for the Orc Lineman, and we are giving it the respect it deserves. Brings us to the number one underrated, undervalued, underappreciated player in Blood Bowl. That's right, Paladin Demo. It's the Halfling Hefty. So the Halfling Hefty has got so much better in Blood Bowl 2020, but it was already incredibly useful. It just looked garbage. It looked garbage at the first glance, but then you delve into it. And the Halfling Hefty, although expensive, comes in at what, 50k? Maybe 55? 55 is catcher, so this guy comes in at 50,000. Movement 5, so average for Halfling. Strength 2, average for Halfling. 3+ agility, average for Halfling. Armor 8+. So much better than armor 7+. Halflings are an SPP gift to your opponent. Not the Hefty. We're going to come around in a second to the passing stat. Armor 8+ and Fend means that you block this guy, you're going to get 2 dice. It's got dodge, so it's probably not going down. It's probably going to stay alive. You're not going to follow up. Fend means it keeps you in place. And secondly, if it does go down, that armor 8+ means that more often than not, it's going to be able to get up just fine in the next turn. The Hefty is designed to anchor your line, to fill in gaps, to stop players advancing. The Hefty is there to be your blocker. The Hefty is the Halfling blocker, okay? But it's also the Halfling quarterback, because this guy's got passing 3+. Underrated player here, and I know Ben and I did an episode on optimistic passers. Optimistic quarterbacks, we've got the Halfling Hefty. So yes, you can't throw it. Doesn't have right stuff. It's got pass 3+, agility, and passing skills on primary skills. So the Halfling Hefty fills many roles on the Halfling team. You can use them as vanilla. I know they're a little bit more expensive than Halflings, but you can have 1 or 2 on your roster. You can use them as vanilla blockers and just put them in places to kind of support your trees or to stop running lanes for your opponent. It's just use that Fend to stop your opponent getting through something. Fend is very aggravating. So it does that job just fine. But the Hefty can come into your one-turn touchdown strategy so well. On the ball is a primary passing skill. It means it gets 3 extra squares when your opponent passes or on the kickoff. So on the turn where you're receiving the ball, the Halfling Hefty is essentially a movement 8 passing 3+ player. That's fantastic for 50k. Alright, you need on the ball. But even without on the ball, you can use a pair of Halfling Hefties to grab that ball and maneuver it around. On the ball makes them so useful for that. Passing 3+ makes them so useful for getting the ball somewhere you want it to be. I know you can't throw teammate and throw a ball at the same time, which I think is a travesty to the rule set. However, you've still got the option there. And as Ben and I discussed, this guy has got the biggest potential to be outrageous fun. Taking accurate makes him a 2+ quick passer. You can build a halfling run game here. You've got a quick pass. Okay, you've got like a tiny Drew Brees who's going to be throwing short balls really, really well. You've got catchers who are basically movement 8. All you need to do is stage up the pitch. 4 squares. Chuck that ball. And you are in with a touchdown with a couple of 3+ stunty dodges. Everybody focuses so heavily on the halfling throw teammate team that they don't want catchers, they don't want hefties because they're too expensive. Play Blood Bowl with this team. Play Blood Bowl with the halflings. They're not just a throw teammate meme. These guys can brawl a little bit, but they can maneuver the ball. They've got movement, they've got agility, and they've got the #1 underrated player in Blood Bowl in the potential movement 8 passing 3+ quarterback that we all needed. The Halfling Hefty. Just wanted to thank everybody for dropping their suggestions and submissions into the underrated player thing. It probably didn't come out how any of you expected, because there were some great suggestions. The Wood Elf Treeman was a brilliant one to get in there as well, and the Orc Thrower is too obvious. It's too obvious. There are so many underrated players, but these are probably the most interesting and the least talked about. There were some other great suggestions, like I said, Wood Elf Treeman, Orc Thrower, Orc Blitzer as well. Basically, Orcs are underrated. There is a ton of great players in Blood Bowl. We talk about the top 5. Most of the time, so it's important to delve below the top 5. Who's in the spots 11 through 15? What players have potential there? Nobility Thrower, you know, the Halfling Hefty. There are some fantastic players out there that are just looking for an opportunity to grow and become something special, and that's something you as a coach can own. If you're an absolute win at all costs tournament player, this list probably not for you. But if you are a tier 2, tier 3 warrior who loves a challenge and the opportunity to brew up something, to grow something that is yours and yours alone, then look at this roster. Pick one of these players and have a great time. The Assassins are great fun. The Hefties are just begging to be a stunty throw team. Sack off the trees, fill them with halflings, and just throw the ball around. You're going to lose, but the times you don't lose, and the times you pull out a draw, and the times you pull off the stunty passing game, that is so much better than just being another catapult team. And I just think it's fantastic. And quite frankly, all the Snotling positionals are just brilliant. But that Fungus Flinger sneaks in under there as being kind of like, this is awesome. And look, guys, trolls are good at times, but they are really good, and they're going to be really useful. And we need more trolls. I want to see a troll team, and I know that's a weird thing for me to say out loud, but I want to see a troll goblin team. I think it's going to be awesome. Trolls are great fun, they're unreliable, and that's great fun. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video now. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you appreciate us having a bit of a laugh and looking at some of the unsung heroes of Blood Bowl. Anyway, I'm going to disappear. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the show even further, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Or come and join us in our Patreon, link below, where you get early access to our content and monthly competitions. See you later.